The frozen stranger, the bazaar on the mining moon, was loud with voices, but one corner was silent. Merchants shouted prices, workers carried crates, machines hissed steam. Yet there she was, lying against a cold wall, barely moving. Her skin looked pale and cracked, her clothes torn like rags, and her breath came out in weak, frozen clouds. Most people did not even glance at her. To them, she was nothing, just another dying refugee from a ruined world. Some laughed as they walked past, calling her worthless. Others turned their faces away. No one cared if she lived or died. But Ethan stopped. He was only a human pilot, just another face in the crowd. His ship was old, his pockets nearly empty, and his stomach hungry. He had no reason to get involved. Yet when his eyes met hers, something froze inside him. Her eyes were faint, almost closed, but there was life in them. A quiet spark, asking for help. He stood there, his hands tight around the last few credits in his pocket. Those credits were all he had left, enough for one more fuel cell, or a meal that could last him 2 days. Without them, he might not make it to his next job. He knew that. He felt it heavy in his chest. But when he looked again at the alien woman, shivering on the cold stone, he made his choice. Ethan walked to a stall and slammed the credits down. "Close," he said. The merchant raised a brow, surprised that anyone would waste money on scraps for a dying stranger. But he took the credits and tossed over a bundle. Ethan knelt by her side. The alien woman tried to move, her lips parting as if to speak, but only a faint sound came out. Her body shook, weak and fragile. Gently, Ethan wrapped the fabric around her, covering her thin arms, her shaking shoulders, her cracked feet. The warmth was small, but her trembling slowed. "You're safe now," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if she understood. Her lips moved again, this time forming a word, soft and strange. It was not English, not any language Ethan knew. Yet the sound pulled at something deep inside him, like an echo he almost recognized. The bazaar around them kept moving. Uncaring, but Ethan felt as if time had stopped. He lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile like glass, her head resting against his shoulder. People stared as he carried her, some laughing, others shaking their heads. "Fool," one merchant muttered. "She won't last the night." Maybe they were right. Maybe she wouldn't, but Ethan didn't care. He couldn't leave her to freeze on the street like garbage. He carried her through the narrow alleys, toward the docking bay, where his small ship, the Aurora, waited. The ship was rusty, patched with old repairs, but it was the only home he had. As he reached the airlock, the woman stirred again. Her eyes, faint but glowing with strange silver light, opened just enough to look at him. For the first time, she spoke clearly, though the words made no sense. Still, Ethan felt a shiver down his spine. It was not just a word. It was a promise, a warning, or maybe both. Ethan looked at her, heart racing. He had spent his last credits on her, risked his own survival for her. He didn't know who she was, or why her voice felt like it carried power. But one thing was certain: his life would never be the same after this moment. And somewhere above the mining moon, unseen by Ethan, ships were already moving. They were looking for her. Asterisk. Aboard the rusty ship, the Aurora creaked as Ethan carried the alien woman inside. The docking bay doors closed with a groan, sealing out the noise of the bazaar. Inside was no palace, just an old freighter with scratched walls, flickering lights, and the faint smell of oil. Still, to Ethan, it was safer than leaving her to die on the cold streets. He laid her gently on a bunk, the thin blanket barely covering her. For a long moment, he just watched her, unsure what to do. Her breathing was shallow, her skin still pale, and strange faint lines glowed along her neck and arms like silver veins. Ethan frowned. He had never seen anything like it. His stomach growled. He had only one ration pack left, and he had planned to save it for himself. Now he opened it, poured the heated broth into a cup, and held it to her lips. At first, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she sipped. Her throat worked weakly, but after a few gulps, her eyes opened wider than before. "Better," Ethan said quietly. He didn't know if she understood, but her gaze lingered on him. The ship hummed as he switched on the heaters, directing the warmth toward her bunk. The old machine rattled like it might break apart, but hot air finally filled the small cabin. The woman's shivering eased. Her head tilted back, her eyelids heavy, and for the first time since he found her, her breathing steadied. Ethan leaned against the wall, running a hand through his messy hair. "What have I done?" he muttered. He had no money left, no fuel for the next jump, and now he had a stranger on board who might die any moment. Any rational man would have walked away, but he wasn't rational. Hours passed. Outside, traffic in the docking bay thinned, the engines of other ships fading into silence. Ethan sat at the edge of the bunk, studying her. He noticed the faint glow on her skin, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat, like hidden energy flowing inside her. When he touched her wrist to check her pulse, the glow brightened slightly, as if reacting to his touch. He pulled back. Startled then, without warning, the ship's control panel beeped. Ethan stood quickly, walking to the console. The sensors had picked up something unusual: LAN energy surge inside his own ship. His brow furrowed. He tapped the screen, but the data was scrambled, unreadable. Behind him, a sound broke the silence. Ethan froze. He turned slowly. The alien woman was sitting up, weak but awake. Her silver glowing eyes locked on him. Her lips trembled as she spoke again. "Ethan," she whispered. This time, clearer. His heart skipped. How did she know his name? He had never told her. He stepped closer, careful. You can talk." She blinked slowly, then nodded. Her voice was soft, fragile, but it carried a strange weight. "Thank you." Ethan sat down, confused and shaken. "Who are you?" Her gaze dropped, as if the answer carried too much pain. She touched the glowing lines on her arm, then looked back at him. "Not safe," she whispered. "They come." A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine. "Who's coming?" But she closed her eyes again, too weak to answer. Ethan sat in silence, his ship humming around him. His instincts screamed that this woman was not ordinary, and that helping her had already set events in motion he couldn't control. And outside, somewhere beyond the stars, hunters were already tracking her signal. Asterisk. The first words: the ship drifted quietly in orbit above the mining moon. Inside the Aurora, Ethan sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the empty stars. He should have been planning his next job, thinking about fuel costs or finding work on another planet. But his mind wasn't on survival. It was on the woman sleeping in the bunk behind him. Every time he glanced at her, he saw something new. The glow on her skin shifted, moving like living threads under her flesh. Her breathing grew steadier, stronger, as if the ship itself was helping her recover. Ethan tried not to admit it, but he was afraid. Who was she? And why did she say his name when he had never told her? He rubbed his forehead, his thoughts heavy. Then he heard a soft sound behind him. A whisper. Ethan turned. The alien woman was awake, her silver eyes glowing faint in the dim light. She sat upright this time, her thin hands gripping the blanket. For the first time, she didn't look helpless. She looked aware. Ethan stepped closer. "You're awake again." Her lips parted, and this time, clear words came out, not in her strange language, but in English. "Where am I?" Ethan froze. His breath caught in his chest. "Did you just?" She tilted her head, her voice still weak but smooth. almost musical. You understand me now? I what? You're speaking English. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though studying him. No, I speak mine. But your mind? Here's this. Ethan felt a chill. Telepathy. Some kind of translation power? He didn't know. But the idea of someone touching his thoughts made his skin crawl. I found you in the bazaar, he said carefully. You were freezing to death. I brought you here. That's all. She looked down as if remembering. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Then she whispered, Lyra. My name is Lyra. Ethan repeated it slowly. Lyra. Her eyes softened, but the peace didn't last. She shook her head weakly, her voice breaking. Not safe. They will find me. They always find me. Ethan leaned forward. Who's after you? Her gaze locked on his, sharp despite her weakness. Hunters. Shadows with no mercy. They follow my blood. Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't like the sound of that. Look, I'm just a pilot with a ship held together by tape and prayers. If you're in trouble, I'm not the man you want protecting you. But Lyra shook her head. Her hand lifted, trembling, and touched his arm. The glow of her skin flared faintly where they connected. You already chose, she whispered. You spent your last. For me? That choice binds us now. Ethan pulled back slightly, unsettled. I didn't do it for a bond. I just couldn't leave you there. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. That is why they will never understand you. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the ship's console beeped sharply. He hurried to the controls, scanning the readout. His heart sank. Long-range sensors showed faint movement. Multiple ships entering orbit, his mouth went dry. He had seen this pattern before. Hunters, he turned to Lyra. Are those the ones you meant? Her expression hardened, her weak body tense. Yes. They come for me. And now? For you, the words hit Ethan like a weight. He had risked his life, spent his last credits. And now he was being pulled into something far bigger than he understood. But when he looked at Lyra, again so fragile, yet carrying something powerful in her blood, he knew there was no turning back. Ethan took a deep breath, his hands steady on the controls. Then we run. Together. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time, Ethan thought he saw hope in them. The hunters arrive. The Aurora shook with a low hum as Ethan boosted its thrusters, trying to slip away from orbit quietly. But he knew it was too late. The hunters were already there. His console showed 3 ships moving into position sleek. Sharp vessels painted in black, like blades drifting through space. They were no merchants, no miners. These were killers. Ethan's fingers tightened on the controls. His little freighter had no chance against ships like that. He knew it, and judging by the look in her glowing eyes, Lyra knew it too. They track my blood, she whispered from the bunk. Her voice was weak, but steady. No shield can hide me from them. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then I'll just have to lie better than they can see. The cum crackled. A cold voice cut through, distorted but sharp. Unidentified human vessel. You carry a fugitive. Release her to us, and you may live. Refuse, and you will burn. Ethan's heart pounded. He muted the cum and turned toward Lyra. Fugitive. What did you do? Her silver eyes met his, filled with pain. I was born. That was enough, he swallowed. That answer didn't calm him, but it also didn't change his decision. He stood, pulling on his jacket. Stay hidden, he told her firmly. Cargo bay. Now, Lyra shook her head. They will sense me. Maybe, Ethan said, helping her to her feet. She leaned on him, still fragile. But I'll make them doubt. Humans are good at that. He guided her into the dark cargo hold, hiding her behind stacked crates and switching on the old shielding plates that once blocked radiation scans. It wasn't perfect, but it was all he had. She looked at him, worry in her eyes, and for the first time she said softly, "Ethan, if you give me to them, they will let you live." He paused, meeting her gaze. "Yeah, but I wouldn't be me anymore." The ship rattled as one of the hunters docked beside them. The airlock hissed, metal grinding as heavy boots stepped onto the Aurora. Ethan waited at the entrance, his blaster strapped loosely at his side. 3 figures entered tall, armored, their helmets hiding faces. They moved with the confidence of predators. The leader stepped forward. "Human," the voice hissed through the helmet. "Give her to us." Ethan forced a calm smile. "Her? You mean the half-dead beggar from the bazaar? I left her where I found her." "You're too late." The hunter's visor tilted. "Do not lie. Lying's one of the few things humans are good at," Ethan said lightly, though his chest was tight. "Check for yourself. All you'll find here is rust and hunger." The hunter spread out, scanning the ship. Ethan's hand hovered near his blaster, but he didn't move. One wrong twitch and they'd cut him down. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the leader stopped, visor turning back to him. "If you protect her, you will die. She is marked. She is hunted until the end of stars." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. "Then maybe you're hunting the wrong ship." Silence. For a heartbeat, Ethan thought he had fooled them. But then, from deep in the cargo bay, a faint glow pulsed through the cracks of the shielding plates. The hunters turned sharply. Ethan's stomach dropped. He had only seconds to decide fight, bluff, or something else entirely. His hands curled into fists. For the first time in years, he wished he had been born with more than just human stubbornness, but stubbornness would have to be enough. Asterisk. Human trick, alien power. The Aurora drifted in silence, its engines cooling after the desperate escape. Ethan sat in the pilot's chair, breathing hard, his hands trembling on the controls. Every system blinked, red shields drained, fuel nearly gone, hull damaged. The old ship had given everything just to survive. Beside him, Lyra lay slumped in the co-pilot's seat, her silver glow faint and fading. Ethan checked her pulse, his heart racing until he felt it weak but steady. Relief washed over him, though worry clung like a shadow. "You saved us," Ethan whispered, staring at her pale face. "But it nearly killed you." The scanners beeped. Ethan's relief vanished. 2 red dots blinked on the screen. The hunters were still out there, circling, waiting for their chance to strike. They weren't giving up. Not until they had Lyra. Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. He had no weapons, no shields, no fuel for another chase. Logic said it was over. But logic had never won him a fight before. He glanced at Lyra again. "You gave me power I didn't understand. Now it's my turn." The hunter ships closed in, their sleek forms cutting through the dark. Ethan studied their pattern, watching their movements. They were faster, stronger, but they weren't expecting human stubbornness or human trickery. He dimmed the Aurora's remaining lights, letting the ship drift like wreckage. Then, carefully, he adjusted the life support readings, sending out false signals, heat signatures bouncing across empty space, as if dozens of escape pods were scattering from a broken ship. The hunters reacted instantly. One ship broke off, chasing the fake signals. The other circled closer, cautious. Ethan grinned faintly. "Hooked you." He powered up a hidden system deep in the ship, an old mining drone launcher. Rusty, half broken, but still functional. He sent the drones spinning out into space, their bodies glowing with false energy. The lone hunter ship turned its cannons on them, blasting one after another. Ethan used the distraction. With the last of his fuel, he fired a short engine burst, sending the Aurora spinning toward a debris field left from an ancient battle. Shattered hulls of old warships floated there, silent graves of forgotten wars. The hunter followed, but inside the wreckage, visibility was poor. Metal bones twisted like a maze. Shadows playing tricks. Ethan slid the Aurora between the broken ships, engines off, letting momentum carry them. He whispered under his breath, "Come on, take the bait." The hunter entered the wreckage, scanners flickering with interference. Ethan watched its path on his console, his palms sweaty. At the right moment, he triggered the drone launcher again. One last drone floated away, glowing like a signal beacon. The hunter locked onto it, mistaking it for the Aurora. It fired, blasting into a broken battleship hull. The explosion tore the wreck apart, sending debris crashing into the hunter. Its shields flared, then broke. The ship spun helplessly, smashed by the floating graveyard. Ethan exhaled, his chest tight. One down. The second hunter was still out there, stronger, smarter. Behind him, a faint voice whispered, "Ethan." He turned quickly. Lyra's eyes were open again, glowing brighter than before. She raised a trembling hand, touching the console. Silver light spread across the controls, fusing with the ship. Ethan stared in shock as the Aurora systems flared back to life. Shields flickered, engines hummed with power that hadn't been there before. Lyra's voice was soft but fierce. Together, Ethan grinned despite the danger. All right then. Human trick. Alien power. The remaining hunter ship appeared on the scanner, closing fast. But this time, Ethan wasn't just a desperate pilot in a broken freighter. He had an Elia living weapon of light at his side. He gripped the controls. Let's show them what happens when you chase the wrong ship. Asterisk betrayal in the stars, the Aurora limped through the void. Its engines running smoother now, only because of Lyra's strange power. Ethan kept his eyes fixed on the stars, guiding the ship toward a small neutral station hidden on the edge of the sector. The station was known as Haven's Rest, a place where fugitives, smugglers, and broken travelers could vanish for a price. Ethan hoped it would be safe. He needed fuel, food, and maybe a mechanic brave enough to patch his half-dead ship. Most of all, Lyra needed rest. She sat beside him, her glow faint but steadier than before. She looked out at the stars, her voice quiet. "You risk much for me. But even a safe harbor can hide knives." Ethan gave a small smile. "You sound like someone who doesn't trust easy." Her silver eyes met his. "When everyone you love is hunted and killed, trust becomes costly." He didn't answer. He understood more than he wanted to admit. The station appeared ahead, a giant wheel of steel orbiting a dead moon. Its docking lights blinked lazily, guiding them in. Ethan landed the Aurora with a rough shudder, metal groaning. He shut the engines down and leaned back with a sigh. Home sweet nowhere. Inside Haven's Rest was crowded with noise and smoke. Merchants traded stolen goods, mercenaries laughed with sharp teeth, and gamblers shouted at glowing tables. Ethan kept Lyra close. Her hood pulled low to hide her glow. They found a mechanic willing to sell fuel cells double the price. Ethan cursed under his breath, but paid with what little he had left. They also bought food, real food for once, and Lyra tasted it slowly. Her expression unreadable. For a short time, Ethan let himself breathe. Maybe they had outrun the hunters. Maybe, for once, they were safe. But then he noticed the stairs. A man at the bar, watching too closely. A trader pretending to check wares, but never taking his eyes off Lyra. A comms operator lowering. His voice, as he whispered into a device, Ethan's gut tightened. "Trouble. Keep your hood low," he murmured to Lyra. "And stay close." They made their way back to the docking bay, weaving through the crowd. But before they reached the Aurora, A voice rang out. Human. Ethan froze. A tall figure stepped into their pathostation guard with dull metal armor and greedy eyes. Behind him, more guards appeared, blocking the way. You've brought something valuable here, the guard sneered. His gaze shifted to Lyra, catching the faint glow under her hood. The ones hunting her. They pay well. Ethan's hand dropped to his blaster. She's under my protection. The guard laughed. Protection. You can't protect yourself, pilot. Hand her over and maybe we'll let you live. Ethan's stomach turned. He had expected hunters. He hadn't expected betrayal from supposed neutral ground. The station wasn't a refuge, was a trap. Before he could act, the guards rushed forward. Ethan drew his blaster, firing warning shots into the air. The crowd scattered, screams filling the docking bay. Lyra pulled back her hood, her silver glow bursting into the open. The guards hesitated, startled. In that instant, Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the Aurora. Alarms blared as the station sealed its hangar doors. Over the loudspeakers, a voice shouted, "All ships locked down. Fugitive identified. Hold position until retrieval." Ethan's jaw tightened. They were caged. Lyra's voice trembled, yet carried fire. "They've sold us to the hunters." Ethan met her eyes, his heart pounding. "Then we break their cage. Together, asterisk." The Royal Awakening, the docking bay shook with alarms. Red lights flashed across the steel walls as guards closed in from every side. The Aurora sat trapped, its engines still cooling, its hatch locked. Above, the great blast doors of the station sealed tight. Cutting off escape, Ethan stood in front of Lyra, blaster raised, his breath sharp and fast. He knew he couldn't fight them all. 10 guards, maybe more, and more coming every second. But he refused to step aside. Lyra's hood slipped back, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever before. Gasps spread through the crowd, her lights spilled into the bay like a living flame. The guards hesitated, their weapons trembling in their hands. "Stand down." The captain barked, though even his voice shook. "She belongs to the hunters." "No," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying across the bay like thunder and silence. "I belong to no one." Ethan glanced at her, startled by the power in her words. She had always sounded fragile, broken, but now there was something else. Something ancient, hidden behind her eyes. The guards moved again, forcing Ethan to fire a warning shot. He shouted, "Back off. She's not yours." The captain snarled and raised his weapon butt before he could fire. Lyra stepped forward. Her hands trembled. Yet when she spread them wide, the glow on her skin exploded. Silver light rushed across the bay. Brighter than any torch, brighter than plasma fire. The guards staggered back, shielding their eyes. The air itself vibrated, filled with a strange hum. Like a choir singing from beyond the stars. Ethan lowered his blaster slowly, his mouth dry. What are you?" Lyra turned her eyes to him, glowing with fierce light. "I am the last daughter of the Ilari throne," she whispered. "My blood carries the key of renewal. They hunt me because if I awaken fully, my people rise again." Ethan's heart pounded. The Ilari, he had heard the name only in whispers, in old spacer stories about a fallen empire crushed by betrayal. Most believed they were gone forever. And yet here she was, standing before him, alive, glowing like a star reborn. The crowd gasped and murmured. Some bowed their heads in fear. Others whispered her name in awe. The captain recovered his voice, though fear cracked through it. All the more reason to take her. Fire. But when the guards raised their weapons, they could not shoot. Their arms trembled, their fingers frozen. Lyra's light wrapped around them like invisible chains. She raised her hands slowly, and the weapons clattered to the floor. Ethan stared, stunned. You controlled them. Lyra shook her head. Not control, truth, their hearts, no loyalty. Even when their masters demand betrayal. Her glow dimmed slightly as she stumbled. Ethan rushed forward, catching her before she fell. Her power drained her body, leaving her weak again. She looked up at him, her voice soft. Ethan, with you, I am stronger. You are my anchor. His chest tightened at her words. He had risked everything for her without knowing why, but now he understood. She wasn't just a stranger. She was the spark of a lost empire, and the galaxy would burn to find her. Above them, the station shook. A deep rumble echoed through the metal walls. Ethan looked to the scanners on his wrist display, his face paling. Hunters, dozens of ships dropping out of warp. Surrounding Haven's Rest like wolves around a cornered prey. The station captain's voice cracked over the comms. Hunters demand immediate surrender. The fugitive must be delivered. Ethan tightened his grip on Lyra. Then they'll have to come through me. Lyra's eyes glowed fiercely despite her exhaustion. Not just you, us. For the first time, Ethan felt it wasn't only his fight. Together, they were something more, the choice of humanity. Walls of Haven's Rest trembled as the hunter fleet surrounded the station. Dozens of black ships glimmered outside the viewports, their weapons locked and ready. Inside the docking bay, alarms screamed while panicked traders and mercenaries scattered, trying to escape a doom that seemed certain. Ethan stood at the hatch of the Aurora, his blaster gripped tight. Lyra leaned on him, her silver glow faint but steady, her eyes locked on the ships outside. She had revealed her true self, her royal bloodline, her power. Now the hunters wanted her more than ever. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling but filled with fire. You can still walk away. Give me to them, and they might let you live. Ethan turned, his jaw set. I spent my last credits to save you, Lyra. I risked everything when I had nothing. Walking away isn't in me. Her eyes softened, her glow reflecting in his determined stare. For a moment, the chaos around them faded, leaving only the bond between a human pilot and a hunted queen. The station captain's voice echoed over the comms. Human, hand her over or be destroyed with this station. Ethan raised the comm, his voice steady. If you want her, you'll have to go through humanity first. A laugh rippled from the hunter commander. Humanity. You are alone. But Ethan shook his head, his grip firm on the controls as he guided the Aurora into launch position. You've never met a human who refuses to quit. The docking clamps released with a shudder. The Aurora rose into open space, its scarred hull gleaming against the hunter fleet. The crowd inside the station watched in silence as the tiny freighter faced an army. Ethan. Lyra's voice quivered. We cannot match them. Maybe not with strength, he said, flipping switches across the console. But with tricks. That's what humans do best. The hunter fleet advanced, weapons charging. Ethan sent the Aurora diving straight at them. Plasma fire filled the void, explosions lighting up the stars. Ethan twisted the freighter through impossible turns. Dodging shots with reckless skill, he triggered old systems, releasing clouds of debris, false heat flares, and decoy signals. The hunters fired at phantoms, their formation breaking as confusion spread. But it wasn't enough. One by one, the hunters adjusted, surrounding him again. The scanners lit up red to many targets, too much fire. Ethan's knuckles whitened on the controls. I can't hold them all before he finished. Lyra placed her hands on the console. Her glow spread through the ship, brighter than ever before. Silver fire racing across every system. Her voice rang like a bell, soft yet commanding. Then let me give what is mine. Ethan turned to stop her, fear in his chest, but froze as he saw her face. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was awake. The Aurora shone with blinding light. Energy poured from its hull, expanding like wings across the void. The hunter ships faltered, their scanners fried. Their weapons powerless. Lyra's power burst outward, a wave of silver flame sweeping across the fleet. Ships cracked, shattered, their black hulls breaking apart as if judgment itself had fallen. One by one, the hunters fell silent, drifting wrecks among the stars. The light dimmed slowly. Lyra collapsed into the co-pilot's chair, her body trembling. Ethan caught her, his arm steady, his voice urgent. "Stay with me." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You gave me hope, Ethan. You showed me humanity's heart." Outside, the wreckage floated in silence. Haven's Rest stared in awe at the tiny ship that had faced an empire's hunters, and one. Ethan held Lyra close, whispering into her silver hair, "I spent my last credits on you, and I'd do it again." 1,000 times. Her eyes closed gently, but her glow remained soft, steady. Alive. For the first time, Ethan realized this wasn't just her fight anymore. Humanity had entered the galaxy's game, and nothing would ever be the same. Asterisk. A dangerous Bantha hunter's helmets turned toward the cargo bay, their scanners locking on the faint pulse of light. Ethan's heart pounded. He stepped forward, blocking their path. Forcing a grin he didn't feel. "You really think I'd risk my life for some frozen stranger?" he said, voice steady but sharp. That glow. "Just a leak in the reactor coils. This ship is old. Half the time it's falling apart, half the time it's trying to kill me." The leader tilted his head, visor unreadable. For a moment, it seemed the lie might work. But then, a low hum filled the bathe. The glow from Lyra's body pulsed brighter, like a heartbeat answering their scanners. The hunter raised his weapon. "She is here." Ethan didn't think. A T moved. His hand shot to his blaster, firing a wild shot at the overhead lights. The bay plunged into darkness. Sparks rained down, shadows twisting. "Run." Ethan shouted from behind the crates. Lyra stumbled out, her body glowing like a lantern in the dark. Her eyes wide with fear. She reached for Ethan. He caught her arm, pulling her toward the hatch. Blaster fire scorched the walls as the hunters fired blindly, their visors glowing in the dark like predators' eyes. Ethan dragged her down the narrow hall, his lungs burning. The Aurora shook as he slammed a door shut behind them, locking the hunters in the bay for now. But it wouldn't hold. They stumbled into the cockpit. Lyra fell into the co-pilot's seat, gasping. Her glow dimmed, her strength fading. Ethan gripped the controls, trying to force the ship free of the docking clamps. Alarms screamed across the panel. "Ethan," Lyra whispered. He glanced at her. She looked fragile, like she might break apart at any moment. Yet her hand reached for his, her silver eyes locked on him. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why risk yourself?" "You don't know me." He hesitated, sweat on his brow, hands shaking over the console. The question cut deep. He didn't know why. Logic told him to hand her over, to save himself. But when he saw her eyes, those tired, hopeless eyes, he remembered the bazaar. How everyone walked past. How she had been nothing to them, because no one else would, Ethan said finally. And someone had to. Her hand trembled, but she gripped his tightly. The glow on her skin flared, spreading from her fingers into his arm. For a second, he felt something impossible, like her heartbeat was inside him, echoing through his blood. The ship jolted. The hunters were breaking through the locked bay. Ethan pulled his hand free, forcing his mind back to survival. "Hold on," he shouted. The clamp snapped as the Aurora lurched forward. The ship tore away from the station, alarms blaring. Ethan punched the thrusters, pushing the engines harder than he ever dared. Flames spat from the rear as the ship sped into open space, But the hunters followed. 3 sleek ships lit up their engines, chasing fast. Lyra leaned weakly against the seat, her voice almost gone. "You can't fight them." "I don't plan to," Ethan muttered. His eyes locked on the stars ahead, mind racing. "I just have to outthink them." The bond between them deepened in silence, fragile but real. Ethan didn't know her past, didn't know her secrets. But he knew one thing: he couldn't let her fall back into the hands of monsters. The hunters drew closer, their weapons locking onto the Aurora, and Ethan whispered, almost to himself, "If I have to burn every last trick this ship has, I'll keep you safe." The escape the Aurora rattled as if it would break apart at any moment. Ethan pushed the throttle to maximum, the old engine screaming under the pressure. The hunters. Ships closed in fast, free, sleek predators chasing a wounded bird. Warning lights flashed red across the console. Heat levels spiked. Ethan cursed under his breath. He had never asked the Aurora to fly this hard. And she was not happy about it. "Too fast," Lyra whispered from the co-pilot's chair, clutching the armrest with trembling fingers. Her glow pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat fading. "Engines. We'll die. They'll die if we stop," Ethan shot back. His hands flew over the controls, rerouting power, shutting down systems he didn't need. Lights dimmed, heaters cut out. Even the oxygen scrubbers slowed. The ship became a hollow shell, every drop of power feeding into speed. Outside the viewport, streaks of plasma fire burned past. The hunters were firing, testing his shields. Sparks flew as one shot clipped the hull, metal screaming in protest. "Hold together, girl," Ethan muttered to the ship. Just a little longer. But the hunters weren't fools. They spread out, forming a triangle around the Aurora. They were hurting him, pushing him toward open space with no cover. Ethan's jaw clenched. He couldn't fight them head-on. He had no cannons, no torpedoes, only tricks. And humans were good at tricks. He cut the engine suddenly, throwing the ship into a violent spin. The hunters overshot for a split second, their formation breaking. Ethan slammed the controls, firing a short burst from the side thrusters. The Aurora darted upward, sliding between 2 of the black ships. The hunters adjusted quickly, their engines roaring as they chased again. Lyra gasped, her glow flaring. She pressed a hand to the console, and for a moment the entire ship vibrated. Ethan's eyes widened, readouts on the screen shifted. Enemy scanners fuzzed with static. "What did you do?" he demanded. Her voice was weak but steady. "I hit us." For a breath, the hunters stumbled, their scanners blind for a few seconds. Ethan seized the chance. He dove the Aurora toward a field of broken asteroids drifting near the moon's orbit. Rocks the size of towers floated silently, jagged and deadly. "You'll kill us," Lyra whispered. "Maybe," Ethan said through gritted teeth, "but it'll slow them down." He weaved the Aurora between the rocks, scraping hull plates, dodging boulders by inches. The hunters followed, their sleek ships sharper and faster. Plasma fire lit up the asteroid field, explosions tearing chunks of stone into dust. The ship shook violently as debris slammed into the hull. Lyra cried out, grabbing Ethan's arm. "Stop, you'll tear us apart." Ethan's eyes burned with focus. Better torn apart than caught. One hunter ship clipped an asteroid, its wing shearing off in a burst of fire. The wreck spun away, crashing into another rock. Ethan didn't cheer, there were still 2 left. The Aurora burst out of the asteroid field, hull scorched, alarms screaming. Ethan punched the last of the thrusters, engines roaring as he pushed into deep space. But the hunters weren't done. The 2 ships streaked after him, their weapons locking again. Lyra's glow brightened suddenly, her silver eyes fierce. She placed both hands on the console. Energy surged through the ship, lights flaring back to life. Ethan felt it in his bones, a pulse of raw power. The Aurora's engines screamed louder, faster than they ever had. For a moment, Ethan thought they would burn out completely, but instead, the ship leaped forward, leaving a trail of light in the dark. The hunters fell behind. Their scanners scrambled, their engines straining to keep up. But as the surge faded, Lyra collapsed back in her seat, her glow dimming almost to nothing. Ethan caught her before she fell, panic shooting through him. "Stay with me," he whispered. Her lips parted in a faint smile. "I trust you." And then her eyes closed. Ethan's chest tightened. He stared at the fading hunters on the scanner, his hands trembling over the controls. They had escaped for now. But he knew this was only the beginning, because whatever power Lyra carried, it was the reason the galaxy wanted her dead. Asterisk.